oh no, I added too much flour. That's where we're at. To make these even better, brush some melted butter on top. Alright, so first thing our recipe tells us to do is grease a 9x13 pan. I'm going to use parchment paper and I'm going to set that aside for now. First step of the recipe is we're going to combine 1 cup of warm water, but not hot water. It has to be warm to the touch. 2 tablespoons of dry active yeast and 1/4 cup of honey. Had to bring out the big boy. Alright, give it a stir. If you're going to be using a mixer for this recipe, you can just combine your water and yeast and honey right into the mixing bowl. I'm going to be mixing by hand. I guess you could mix it in your mixing bowl either way, but I have mine in just my glass measuring cup. So we're going to let this sit for 15 minutes. Our yeast has blossomed. I'll be honest, mine was let set for a little more than 15 minutes, but that's where we're at. So now we're going to pour this into a large bowl. Make sure you get all that goodness out of there if you didn't have this mixture already in your bowl. Now I have melted 1/3 of a cup of butter. And if you're not sure how much 1/3 of a cup of butter is, look on the side of your sticks of butter and the paper that it's in shows you along the stick where 1/3 is. 1 large egg and 1 teaspoon of sea salt. I'm going to make sure my egg yolk is broken up. Now we are going to add the 3 to 3.5 cups of whole wheat flour. If you don't want to use whole wheat flour, you can use all-purpose. If you use all-purpose, I would cut the yeast you use in half to only 1 tablespoon. The reason this recipe called for more yeast is because whole wheat flour is heavier. So remember to spoon your flour into your measuring cup. Don't pack it in, or else you will have too much flour and dry rolls. And no one wants that. 2, 3. The recipe does call for 3 to 3.5 cups. Always start with the smallest amount that they tell you to. You can always add more, but you cannot take any back. The climate you are cooking in will also impact how much flour you use. If it's winter or if it's drier, which it tends to be in winter, the air is drier, and so your batter is more likely to be dry. If you're in a very humid environment, it's summer, you don't have air conditioning, it's humid, your dough will tend to be more wet. So just because the recipe says 3 to 3.5 cups, if your dough is still too wet, go ahead and add more. The recipe says this will be sticky, but this is still a little too sticky. It's very shaggy. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that 1/2 cup of flour in. If you're like, oh no, I added too much flour, just keep working it in. Now we're not kneading it, I'm just incorporating all that flour. Sometimes it's just easier to do with your hands. So like I said, the recipe said it'll be sticky but manageable. And it's sticky but manageable. So now we are going to cover it with a towel or a piece of plastic wrap and let it set for 10 minutes. Let's take a look. It's risen a little bit, so we are going to flour our surface, a clean surface, because we don't want the dough to stick to your countertop. Okay, the recipe says to form it into a ball, and we're going to divide it into 16 dough balls. I'm going to take my knife and use that to help me separate the dough ball. It's 2, 4. Maybe you want to flour your knife as well. And then each one of the 4 will be cut into 4. So take your quarters and cut them into quarters. It's okay if they're not exactly perfect, but try your best to get them symmetrical, the same size, so that they all cook evenly. Getting a little crowded over here. If you have a bench scraper, that would be a good tool to cut these into their individual dough sizes. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Sorry if you can't see the ones down here. So you're going to take your dough and tuck the bottom, just keep tucking the bottom under until you get a ball. It'll look like that on the bottom, but that's okay. And do that 16 times. So I realize I should have done 15. We'll make them fit. I might put that number 16 just in an oven safe dish or bowl and cook it by itself. So we are going to set these aside and cover them again with your towel or plastic wrap, and these are going to rest for 20 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to preheat our oven to 375 degrees. It's been about 20 minutes. And our rolls have risen a little bit. This poor little guy, I have to figure out. I'll probably just put him on a cookie sheet and bake him. These are gonna go in for 15 to 20 minutes or until they're golden brown on top. Would you look at those buns? Okay, these did go in for 15 minutes. They're a little brown on top. To make these even better, I would brush some melted butter on top. And if you like garlic, you can sprinkle some garlic powder on top. Or you could even do a honey butter and brush that on top. But let's give one of these a try. So they tear off really easily from one another. Do you see the steam? They rose well, especially for this recipe being 100% whole wheat flour. They're hot, but I have to try them out for you guys. They have a relatively mild flavor for a roll that is 100% whole wheat. And I think the 1/4 cup of honey has a lot to do with that. So don't skimp on the honey. Super easy, you don't have to knead the dough, and homemade.